Hi YouTube, it's Joanna Delilah and I am going to be doing a video, or a couple of different videos actually, on face painting, in particular brush strokes and flowers. I've got a friend with me who is going to help me. This is Betty, and this is the very basic design. Don't look too close at it because it's not the best. I'm out of practice. Betty loves it though, don't you Betty? Yes. So this is the basic design we're going to be working towards building on. I'm going to show you the individual brush strokes first of all, and then come on to how to do the little flowers. One thing I would say about face paint actually, and Betty's a very good illustration of that, is that don't get too stressed about it being perfect. Now, first of all, disclaimer, I am not a face painter. I'm a makeup artist, or I am a body painter. But face painting in itself is quite a different discipline in terms of how you hold your brushes and how you work. And hat off to face painters, the talent that they have and the speed in which they can do designs is incredible. But it's not something I practice very often, and the key in being a face painter is it's all about speed and having these designs and memorizing the brush strokes so that you can really quickly get through a queue of wriggly, snotty-nosed children when the world is back to normal, of course. So it is a different thing. I'm filming these videos because I'm a makeup tutor and my students are working from home at the moment in lockdown. So this is what we would have been doing in class, but you might like to learn along with us. So I'm going to do something very basic that you can then develop on. So what I was going on to say before I went off on that little tangent is one of the key things for face painting is it's all about the impact of how it looks from a little bit further away. So I actually think Betty, doesn't she look pretty? She's really flowery, really festive, and if you added a little bit of glitter on top of that, she would be a very happy customer and would go off dancing around her festival or wherever she is. Wouldn't you, Betty? Yes, she would. But if I bring that, which I'm reluctant to do, but I'm going to do it, I'm going to take one for the team. If we look at this closely, you will see lots of imperfections actually. Look how unbalanced all of these petals are. They're quite scruffy if you look at them individually. I mean, what the heck is that about, that little so-so star thing? So not my best work. As I say, I am out of practice. But even so, in the context of, oh look, I've got two heads, you know, wearing this as a nice little face paint design, it's going to be fine because the overall impact is always from a few feet away. When we're working with makeup, we are constantly obsessed with perfection, and any tiny little bit of fallout on the eyeshadow or anything like that. And face painting, for one, you don't have the time. And for two, no one cares, because it's lovely having your face painted. She'll go off and have a lovely little time. No one's going to be worrying about the wonky flowers. The other thing I always say is there are no mistakes, only design opportunities. So where I might have gone a bit wrong or a bit wonky, like that little curly thing is awful, I just added some little white dots over the top of it. Or again, that's where glitter can really be your friend as well. So there are always ways to disguise it. So don't get hung up on doing each individual petal. Don't ever wipe it off. You can always keep going and just make it into something else. So yeah, no mistakes, only design opportunities, or as Bob Ross would say, happy accidents. So I'm going to just move my camera down. Hopefully it won't fall out of its thingy. So you can see my board. I'm working on this is a body painting practice board. You can get face charts in them as well. Really good. But you can do this either on your own hand, or you can do it on paper, even with face paints. They work really well. Excuse my chip nail polish. So we're just going to use this whole design that I did on Betty. I just used one brush, which was this one. We're going to do everything with the same brush just to show you, you know, a bit about the brush control. So some key things about the brush. I always say, this has been used, so it's got a bit of paint on it. Messy brush, messy finish. So when you're loading up your brush with paint, you don't want any paint on this metal bit, the ferrule of the brush. So keep all your paint on the bristles. If you look at the shape of the brush, we've got, this is referred to as the toe, and then this bit, the base of the bristles, where it bends, that's the heel. So heel to toe, imagine it like a foot. So there's your tip toe and there's your heel. And the way to hold your brush is very different from how you'd hold makeup brush. So if you were doing someone's face like this, let me just move this camera up a little bit more. If you were doing someone's face, obviously their face is going to be upright to you. If you were doing makeup, you'd probably have your brush on an angle like that, and you'd maybe rest your hand on their cheek. If you're doing face paint, you need to keep that brush at a right angle at all times. That is how you get the control of the brush, and you get the crisp brush strokes that give you the desired effect. If you bend or hold it at an angle, you start to lose your brush strokes. And remember, the face painting is all about the different brush strokes. So I'm just going to start off with the teardrop shape. Another good tip for face painting, excuse my chip nail polish, I've already said that, is to have 2 pots of water on the go. So I've got one which is clean and one which is painty, filled with paint, where I clean my brush off in between. You're also going to need a towel or something to wipe your brush on, some kitchen paper as well. If you're going to be practicing this on your own skin, it's good to use a white paint, just because it's easier to clean it off and go again. I'm going to start off with the teardrop shape. So first of all, I'm just dipping my brush in the clean water and then work it into the paint. It is going to make it go a bit pinky where I've used it before for my flowers, but it'll do. We move on. So remember what I said, messy brush, messy finish. Will that focus if I do the YouTubey thing? So no paint up on the metal bit, and then to get your brush to a nice shape, give it a little twist on the paint. And with face painting, it's all about getting that consistency of paint right, and you can really only do that by trial and error. So working out, you know, you don't want it too wet, you don't want it too dry, and that's one of those things you just have to get a feel for it. Give your brush a little twist onto the paint so you've got a nice pointed end. So then keeping our brush upright to the surface, so you want it perpendicular, that's a lovely word, isn't it? You're going to just push down, so very lightly on the toe first of all, and a slight move along, and then push down to the heel to get you that teardrop shape. Okay, so along, push and lift up. They do look a bit questionable in white, I'm sorry. But down, along, push down, lift up. So there's no bending of the brush. You want to try and keep your brush as upright as possible. So I'd like you to just have a little practice with that and master the different shapes that you can do with the brush. So as you can see, it's starting to go a bit wibbly there because my brush is losing its shape. That means I just need to reload it. So I'm just going to dip it into my water, reload again, and twist. So keeping the brush upright, we go bump, 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 like so. You can make these into a petal, into a flower rather. Once you've mastered that, when I say mastered that, I don't know if you can see, actually, move it a bit closer. I wouldn't say I'm anywhere near a master, but remember what I said about Betty and her face paint. They don't have to be perfect. They just have to be petal shaped-ish, because nothing in nature is perfect, is it? If we were doing real flowers, looking at real flowers, they're not going to be perfect and symmetrical. But to do a little flower, you're going to just do 5 of those in a little circle. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I always prefer to leave a little hole in the middle so I can add a different colour or a little bit of glitter or something. I find if you do them with, where should I go? You can see there. If you do them too close together, so the middles are touching, I'm not as keen on that as I am the ones with the little hole in, and you'll see why when I put the other colour in. Just do one more. 2, 3, 4, 5. So these are all done with the same brush, but just depending on how heavy-handed you are when you go down to your heel, it's going to give you a bigger flower than if you just did a little tiptoe one. So even this, where I'm running out of paint, it's gone really ropey, but in the context of a face painting design, it's still, I don't want to tip my water over, it still looks pretty. So just go with it and trust the process. The next thing I want to show you is how to do dots, and I'm just going to wash my brush off in the water. It seems silly to want to show you how to do a dot because it's the most basic of thing, or so you'd think. But actually there is a trick to it. So you want your paint fairly wet, but again, not so it's going to run everywhere. But work that water and the brush into the paint. Give your brush a nice little swirl, and you want to see that little puddle of paint. Can you see that little pool there where it's kind of coming together like a liquidy bit of paint? Twist your brush so you get a nice neat point, and then dip it into that little puddle, but you don't want to touch the actual base of the paint. So you're just literally picking up a bit of paint and then just place that on. With dots, it's quite nice to use them in collections of 5s, 7s. I always like odd numbers of things, which is why I like petals with 5 petals rather than 6. But keep your brush upright or perpendicular. If you press a little bit harder, you'll get a bigger dot than if you press really light, you'll get a tiny dot. But dots in themselves are really nice little space fillers. Let me just come back to show you Betty. Here she is. The dots themselves are really nice for filling a space, or as I say, disguising something where you've gone a little bit wrong. What I like to do with them is try to keep them in little clumps rather than just evenly disperse them all over everything. So I've got like some down here, I've got a few through there, in little clumps together. So I almost see them as a flower in themselves. That makes sense. So dots are really, really useful. I'm going to come back in another video and show you a few more little brushstroke techniques, just because I don't want this getting too long. But I'll show you how to do the little flicks and the little swirls and things in my next video, and adding some colour into your flowers like this one. Okay, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.